Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and today I want to show you how to paint a skeleton warrior for the Tomb Kings for Warhammer the Old World in the very classical rainbow color scheme. I think that is the way most of us paint our skeleton warriors, right? Well, okay. Anyways, it was just a fun idea I had, and I wanted to test it out and see how it would look, so that's what I did. So I started off with a model that's been primed using the Wraithbone primer, and then I took one of the red contrast paints from Citadel. This one is called Blood Angels Red. And then I did a quick wet blend with that and the Gryph-hound orange that you can see here. And as I said, it's just a really quick wet blend, nothing fancy at all. This is, after all, more or less like a test model. It's a for fun painting project, so I'm not going about it trying to create something that will win any sort of painting awards or anything. This is just for fun, and that is the way I enjoy painting the most. Then I took some Yanden Yellow, also a contrast paint, and I did a quick wet blend between that and the orange. And that's simply the way I work with this entire color scheme, just quick areas where I wet blend between one color and the next, and I think it works just fine. I mean, again, if you want to be much more neat about it and get everything much more smooth, then of course wet blending and just more or less leaving it at that won't really cut it. But for something like this and for testing color schemes out, it works just fine. Next up, I'm blending the yellow into the green, and the green I'm using here is also a contrast paint, and it's called Warp Lightning. And again, just a quick Just quickly blending these two colors together. Wet blending with contrast paints is really easy. The only thing is that you need to work a little bit quickly because they do tend to dry relatively fast. And after the green was done, I started blending that into some blue. And the blue color I'm using here is called Talazar Blue. And again, just quickly blending the two. If you wanted something a little bit more smooth, of course, you could have made let's say a third color, which was an even mixture of the two, and worked from there. And I probably would have done if I was painting a bigger surface. Let's say I wanted to do this on a big knight or the bone dragon, for instance, from the Tomb King set, then I would definitely make more steps in between. But for a small model such as this, it is just fine. Don't overcomplicate things, especially not if you're just having fun. And lastly, I decided that I wanted it to have a pink head, and so I grabbed some Volupus Pink, also from Citadel, and I blended that with the Talazar Blue. I think actually a rainbow should be violet instead of pink or something, but I don't care. This is my rainbow skeleton, and it's gonna be pink. Next up, I started working on the shield, and I knew I wanted it to be rainbow colored, just like the warrior itself, but I also thought it would look a little bit weird if I just did sort of the exact same gradient on the shield as I had done on the skeleton, because I wanted it to be very clear with just a quick glance that these go together, but they're not made from the exact same material. And so I decided to go for a sort of stained glass look on the shield. And that's why I'm painting with the pencil here, or drawing with the pencil, these small geometric patterns that I can then fill out with the exact same colors that I used for wet blending on the skeleton. I really debated with myself whether or not I wanted the colors to start off with the red and then progress through the orange to yellow, green, blue and pink, and then just have the stained glass look. But then I in the end decided against that and just went with this weird, more like sort of harlequin looking pattern where it's just all over the place. And that was just because I thought it would be a little bit more fun, and also because I thought it would be again easier to tell that the skeleton and the shield, while connected, were not made of the exact same material. So I just placed the colors as randomly as I could. It turns out it's actually quite difficult, I think, for a pattern-seeking human brain to do stuff at random. But I did the best I could, and I was having quite a lot of fun. I don't think I've ever tried painting a stained glass look on any sort of miniature with this amount of color in it, and that was just fun. I mean, using a lot of bright colors just always makes me happy, which is of course why I do it. Next up, it's time to start highlighting the warrior, and the first color I'm using is called the red, and it's from Chimera Colors, and it's just a really nice, vibrant, true red color that I'm getting quite fond of. I'm using the same color here to draw a sort of, or paint a sort of edge highlight or light outline inside each of the red squares or triangles to sort of get to that stained glass looking effect that I really want to achieve. Then for the orange parts of the model, I'm using again a color from Chimera Colors that is called orange. They don't have the most creative names, but the colors are really excellent. And I do the same here with the light outline or edge highlight as I did with the red with the orange triangles here. Next up, I start adding the fluorescent highlights. I have some neon paints from a company called Huge Miniatures, and I really enjoy using fluorescent neon paints, both because they make the model pop under a normal light, but also because they add the completely useless but very fun benefit of having a model that glows under a UV light. So the first color I'm using on the red is called Radar Red, and the next one I'm using here on the orange is called Laser Orange. I try to blend the colors into each other just a little bit, but again, I'm not being overly careful or detailed with it here. But actually, fluorescent paints work really well also if you make them into a glaze or something. So they actually do give you an opportunity to do some really smooth blends if you want to do so and take the time for it. I then also do more highlights here on the shields using the same colors, but instead of putting it all like I did with the first red paint where I used the red all around the edge, I just highlight some of the tips of the triangles just to add a little bit of visual interest and make sure that it looks like light is hitting sort of the squares from behind in certain angles or something. I just think it makes it look just a little bit more like stained glass if there is a bit of variation in the highlights. For highlighting the yellow, I am first using a color called Cold Yellow, which is also from Chimera Colors. And I usually tend to go with a warmer yellow when I'm highlighting yellow. But for this particular model, I really wanted to highlight every single part of it with a fluorescent color, and you can only get fluorescent yellow in a cold greenish looking tone, and so I thought that a very warm yellow underneath as the first layer of highlights would probably make it look just a little bit off. So I actually went for the cold yellow as the first layer of highlights, and then I used the fluorescent Starfire yellow from Huge Miniatures as the second layer of highlights. For the green, I used a color called Mood Green, which is from Citadel, which is sort of a nice light, bright green color that works really well as the underpainting for the next layer of highlights, which is called Quantum Green, and that's also one of the fluorescent paints from Huge Miniatures. And of course, those are also the two colors I used for highlighting the shield. And at this point, I was really enjoying painting the shield because at first I thought it just looked really busy, and I was a little bit uncertain that it would actually end up working out at all once it was done, because as I said, I've never used that many colors for a stained glass look before. But when I added the green, it sort of felt like it was starting to come together, and so I was quite happy with that and had a lot of fun painting it. For the blue, I just used a color called Blaster Blue, which is also a fluorescent paint from Huge Miniatures. I think it works just fine as an ordinary sort of light blue color. I'll also tend to use it even if I don't need it for the fluorescent qualities of it. And also, I think there is something about blue which makes it just a little bit harder to actually make as sort of neon-like as, for instance, the green or the pink. It just looks more like an ordinary blue, but it does, after all, show up under a UV light, so I'm quite happy with that. It's just, I think, a little bit more difficult to actually make blue look quite as wild and fun and crazy as other colors, but perhaps I just haven't quite found the right technique yet. There must certainly there must be a way, right? Once the first layer of highlights was done, I just mixed it up with a little bit of white and used that as the final layer of highlights, as you can see here. With the pink, I didn't want to go straight to the fluorescent paints, so the first layer of highlights was made with a color from Vallejo called Warlord Purple, which is sort of a nice, slightly warmish tone, pink color. I think it looks more pink than purple, but I mean, it might just be my eyes because, I mean, it is after all called Warlord Purple, which is a very nice name. It wasn't that easy to see that first layer of highlights, but I thought it was a really nice foundation for the fluorescent paints that came on top of it. And the first layer is called Pulse Wave Pink, and it's also from Huge Miniatures. And this is one of my favorite paints to use because there is just something that is always so fun and bright about fluorescent pink colors. I don't know. I think, I think I have... I might be slightly addicted to fluorescent pink paints. Yeah, don't tell anyone. Then the last layer of highlights is another pink fluorescent color, and this one is called Cyber Pink, and it's just a sort of lighter version of the Pulse Wave Pink. Often I will do a last layer of highlights where I mix in just a little bit of white, but I thought that that would not really look that great for this particular paint job where it's all about these very bright but also quite saturated colors. So the only time I actually used a little bit of white was for mixing it in with the blue paint, and that is simply just because I couldn't find another way of making it really bright and look like it would be, you know, popping off the model. Then once I was happy with all the colors on the shield, I grabbed a black contrast paint. This one is called Black Legion, and I painted in a black line between each of the shapes, which sort of helps it to look nice and clean and sharp. And I think that is really important when you do something that is as busy as this, because right now it just looks a little bit messy, but when you then do these nice sharp black lines to help divide the space between the shapes, I just think it helps everything come together, and it helps you know at a glance when you're looking at it that it's supposed to be like this, and it's just, I don't know, there's something that just makes it a little bit more easy on the eye if it looks sharp, I think, to me at least. So this is what it ended up looking like, and I have to say I think it was quite fun. I don't know that I would do an entire army painted like this because it does take a bit of time because there are just so many colors involved, but it was definitely fun, and it ended up actually looking, I think, a little bit better than I had anticipated because I thought it would just look like a mess, and I think it looks like a mess, but it's a fun mess, which is cool. And just a quick note, I know that some people will look at this and go, oh, that is just so gay. Why are you mixing politics into our hobby? Yeah, I don't consider LGBTQ plus rights to be political. I consider them to be human rights. And I think there should always be a space for human rights in any sort of hobby, including the Warhammer hobby. And besides, I'm a woman married to another woman, so rainbows are exactly my thing. Now you know, I just wanted to get it out there. Okay, so this is what the model looks like under a UV light. And as I said, one of the cool things about using fluorescent paints is that they will glow like this under UV light. And it's just completely useless, but very fun to me. And I will never get tired of it, I think. The day I get tired of black lights with fluorescent paints is probably the day that I'm, getting tired of the entire hobby anyways. And just for fun, I made a killer can that is very wobbly and silly a while back, and I thought this model was so silly in and of itself that it somehow would go quite well together with the killer can. So I put it on top of the killer can and just, played around with it. I don't know. I'll soon be 40 years old, and I'm still having way too much fun playing with these toy soldiers, and I guess that's why I'm still in the hobby, of course. So there you go. I hope you like the killer can with its new, I don't know, mascot, whatever. Yeah. So Anyways, before you leave, I would of course, as always, like to take the opportunity to thank the wonderful people who support Dice and Demons over on Patreon. So thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Scott Broadway, Gwenna L, Queen's Wolf, Double J's Terrain, Mola Mola, Steve Eberly, Bosworthy Rogue, Mando Project, Starcon85, S. Bear, Echinocacus, Elliot Philby, Cyber Fossil, and Cinnamon Coffee 87. I will leave a link to my Patreon in the show notes so you can check it out if you might also be interested in becoming a patron. So I hope you liked this video. If you have any sort of comments or suggestions or ideas for future videos or anything, you are more than welcome to leave them in the comment section, and I will try to get back to as many as I can. You are of course always welcome as well to leave a like and share the video with your friends. Remember that you can also follow me as Dice and Demons over on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram if you want to stay up to date on my painting projects. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!